Tamika Wilson. Sandra Bland. Ashe. Timothy Thomas. Laquan McDonald. Ashe. Shots and a cover. $16 shots and a cover up. 16 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 shots and to cover up 16 shots, 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 and to cover up 16 shots. And for the thousands of others that have met their fate at the hands at those who were charged with protecting them. Is there nothing more vile? Is there nothing more evil? Is there nothing more disgusting than police brutality? No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. Come on. No justice, no peace. 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 What? No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. Come on. No justice, no peace. Yeah. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. Justice, no peace. What? No justice, no peace. 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 Come on. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice. 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 No justice.
What's going on, brothers and sisters? This is Professor Spira. You've been listening to the Brother Air Psychopathic Therapy Sessions. And what's going on? Oh, what is going on, brothers and sisters? It's been a while. It's been a little while since I've done a live broadcast by myself, and did a little Q&A and all that good stuff. I hope that the sound is cool and the visuals are okay, and I'm just kind of having some fun here with messing around with you see my beautiful view of where I want to be. It can't be at the moment, but having a little fun with the green screen here, and then doing a couple little fancy things here with the text overlay and all that kind of stuff. But how you been doing? How have you been doing? What has been going on with your transition, and how you holding up in this insanity that's out here? This pus and mucus delirium. These folks are high, drunk, high, inebriated, any other descriptive term that stands for being totally messed up. Out of, as Eric says, humans have lost their reason. We've lost our way, lost our path, forgot who we are and where we come from. And we are trying to get ourselves together, as we say, get ourselves back together. And let me take a look at so if you guys are on the live chat, I'm taking a look at it periodically, and you can let me know how things are going there. And so what's been going on? There's been a lot of stuff has been happening, and yesterday we had a great meeting, the first meeting of Mucus-free Life team, and there was about 23 beautiful folks that came to the meeting, and we talked about some of the things that we have in store, and ways that people that we can help each other, that we can come together and help one another push this mucus-free message out to a much wider audience. And now, if you're interested in joining the Mucus-free Life team, there is a link down below that you should be able to find. But yeah, it's just gotten to the point now where I realize I need some help, and because I've been for years now. I've started off for years. I was just giving away all kinds of information and free books and all kinds of stuff, and then I got into the point where it's okay, let me publish some books and put together a good website where people can find this information, and now it's the interest and everything just starting to skyrocket, and so I'm reaching out to folks for help to do various things, and so and it's just fun to work with each other, and it's kind of a social situation where we can, folks that have a similar mindset can come together and just have fun. For me, it's you use the word work, but it's fun for me. Like all this is me going back to when I was 4 years old with a Fisher-Price tape recorder. I used to do a little radio show when I was real young. I did my own little radio show, and I had a Fisher-Price tape recorder, and I would just act like I had a radio show, and I would do multiple voices because I was the only child, so I made up different little characters, and so I'd change my voice and be like, hey, this is so-and-so, and then be like, yeah, and I'd talk to myself and stuff, and you get creative. You get creative when you don't have a whole lot of folks to deal with, but yeah, I love whether it's putting together videos or making videos, working on books, working on new visual aids and memes, all that kind of stuff. It's all part of the creative process for me. Music, making music, as you heard, listening to the bit of, and that's unreleased. I'm trying to find stuff that I haven't released yet to play, because we've been playing the same music for a very long time on all the videos, so I'm kind of digging into the archive a little bit to find some new stuff, and that was a couple clips from that. We do that it'll be 2 years in December, so like a year and a half ago, when we did the Brother Air psychopathic therapy sessions as a commentary on the sociopathic, psychopathic kind of world that we live in. And I truly believe that the foundation of all of those problems and why it is the way it is because of pus and mucus eating. In other words, getting away from nature, getting way, way far away from nature. And so yeah, so that is what we're doing there. Oh, well, this is let's see, this is a kind soul here. Evangeline Torres says, nobody is watching this, dude. You should stop. Or you are just a wonderful, wonderful human being. I bet you're totally mucus free, and you're just a lovely, lovely person to be around. But but that's but that's the whole point. Really, that's what it took to do what I did with the Mucusless Diet Healing System, in terms of exposing it to anybody. I literally in the beginning had to not care if anybody was listening, because there wasn't anybody at all. And so I really was putting out, so it's nothing new for me, putting out stuff, because a lot of the things that I'm interested in, large numbers of people do not care. They're not interested. People aren't interested in avant-garde jazz and in various forms of art and history, philosophy, and all these different subjects that I'm interested in, that I would love to talk about at length with more people. It's hard finding people that are really interested in that. The kinds of subject, if I wanted to get a whole bunch of views, I know what I would title the video. If I titled the video, raw foods, or being, going green, or something that to me is just kind of I don't know, just that mainstream kind of mentality does not go far enough for me. But yeah, that's that. And okay, we got a couple other folks here. I actually tried to create a way to look at the chat on the screen, but for some reason that's actually not working. But so part of today's mission was to answer some questions, and there's a number of people that sent me some questions to answer. And I used to do Q&A sessions quite a bit. I think there's 12 of them, and they were really long. And so it's been a while since I've done a Q&A. So I'm gonna do a few of these and see how you know, see how it goes. So let's see here. Let's check this out. So, okay, first question. How old are you? And I am 35 years of age. This is, I noticed on Google there's a search for Professor Spira age. So people are interested in how old I am, I guess. And so, yeah, so that's it. You know, I've practiced the Mucusless diet since I was about 19 years old when I really started practicing. And so it's almost 15 years or so. And it's been one heck of a journey. So that's all I can say about that. Let's see, Christy. And I did take away, if anybody left the last name, I took that away here. So keep the question somewhat anonymous there. But can you do lemonas while breastfeeding? So lemonas are lemon juice and distilled water enemas. Now, of course, anything that I say about about breastfeeding and childbearing and things is secondhand. What parents that I personally know that practice a Mucusless diet, and some of which have practiced for a long time, I know for a fact that they did continue to do lemon juice and distilled water and enemas while they were breastfeeding. They also did it while they were pregnant. Now, of course, I had to say the disclaimer because I'm not telling anybody to do anything. I'm not saying, you know, just you do what you need to do based on your research. I'm just relaying the information that I know. And there's a video that I've yet to find the time to finish editing it, but Brother Air did another interview with Takora. You've probably seen on the channel. There's a video with Brother Air's interviewing Takora, and she talks a little bit about her experiences bearing children while practicing the Mucusless Diet Healing System. And she's practiced almost 40-something years now. She's got more energy than anybody I know. I mean, she put Brother Air, give him a run for his money. And I got some pictures of it somewhere. The last year when we did this, out in my backyard, there's this big tree, and Takora, it seemed like in like 5 seconds, 10 seconds, she leaped and jumped to the top of this tree. I mean, she climbed a tree and was just sitting perched up in the top of the tree. And we was like, where'd she go? And I looked up, and it's not like a small tree. It's a serious tree. And she just ran up this tree like it wasn't nothing, just up there hanging out, chilling. And so she's really, really interesting, kind of remarkable person. But yeah, in that interview, she talks quite a bit about her experiences being pregnant and things like that. But she talks about that she did do lemon juice enemas, I think before, during, and after. And so from what I've heard, I haven't heard any mucusless parents that have had problems with it. And not to say that it wouldn't happen, but I haven't heard it yet. What food and drink, etc., would you suggest staying away from entirely while breastfeeding, if already vegan and mucus-free? And that's another one where Takora does get into some of that, and really, I need to get those videos done, because again, me talking about it is kind of secondhand, where you listening to Takora talk about it is kind of right on point. But I know from Brother Air with his child, he just, I mean, a lot of the process is seem to be exploring and experimenting with plant-based items, and so I know that Brother Air actually got his son into eating solid foods fairly quickly, which was that was kind of interesting and surprising. I think he was saying he was eating solid a little bit of solid food within, I think it was 7 or 8 months. It was pretty quick, and he had a couple different recipes. So what I'm gonna do, that's a homework assignment for me. I'm gonna work on put together a blog post that has some more information about that, because I know I have there's a general thing that I send out that has information about that I've compiled from different mothers that practice the mucusless diet about the mucus-free pregnancy. So I need to put together a resource that is even more comprehensive, and so I'm going to work on that and try to get that out there. It'll probably be in the form of a blog post and maybe a couple added videos on that. But and you have your homemade recipe there, and so yeah. So I don't want to misspeak, because some of that, my memory on it is I want to make sure is clear. So I'm gonna put this all down in writing, and I'll have it read through by Takora and Brother Air and some of the other folks I know that are mothers practicing mucusless diet, and that's something that we need to focus on more on that, talking more about that kind of content. Oh, okay, yeah, you see, you're about to start introducing solids after 6 months of age. Yeah, I think that's about the time that Brother Air started introducing solids to his son. Yeah, and I know that he didn't think he used a spirulina, but that was like the only of kind of, outside, that outside the realm, that kind of nutritional thinking kind of thing, and that was more, experimental, but like I said, I'm gonna work on that. I'm gonna get a document together and post that up, and it'll be much more comprehensive in terms of the mucus-free pregnancy and raising a child on the Mucusless Diet Healing System. Next question: how can I reach you directly when needing guidance? So over the past several months, really since January, I've been on a sabbatical from doing consultations. So I haven't been available to do consultations since about January, and so it's gonna be a little bit longer where I have this sabbatical, and when I come back, I'm gonna totally retool my my whole program, because my health services and consultations and all that kind of stuff. Now, within the next couple weeks, I plan on, me and Brother Air plan on releasing some packages to actually work with Brother Air. And one of those packages is gonna actually be an option to have Brother Air come out to where you live, not stay with you in your home, but work with you in your environment, in your habitat, and then give you feedback and kind of coach you along, and so that's going to be interesting. But so that'll be coming out in a couple weeks. I probably won't start doing consultations again until later in this year. But in the meantime, I'm going to be working a lot with I'm going to start working with the Mucus-free Life interns, which if you're interested in that at all, go down and hit the link that says Mucus-free Life team. That's all a part of that. And so I'm going to, with some of those interns, there will be a consultation relationship there. And the e-course, so I'm putting all my energy and focus now into releasing the e-course, the Mucusless Diet Healing System e-course, which I know I've been talking about for years and years. It's finally done. I'm finally happy. I'm happy enough with it to release it. So I'm gonna release that, and that's I'm just excited about that. if you're interested in the early bird price for that, hit the link and put your information in. There's like 3 different things that you can hit the link down below and sign up for. And I will be emailing the people that signed up for the early bird sometime next week to get started on that. So you actually get started doing the e-course if you go if you go that route. And the early bird pricing is never going to be that cheap again. It's going to be like almost 70 or 80% off because I want to take folks through it, and we'll actually have some meetings, kind of have kind of classroom sessions at different points through the e-course so that I can get feedback and in case there's some things that I can improve along the way. And so it's going to be that'll be a good time to take the course if you've been following me for a while and you already know that you like what we're about and what's happening. You'll really like the e-course. Yeah. And unfortunately, another part of what I try to do is, after the e-course and as I start to work with the interns, that is going to be a path toward certification. That's something I'm getting emails all the time now about it, asking, is there a mucusless diet certificate and that kind of thing? And no, not not yet, because there's not been people that have dedicated their lives to this path. Most of the people in the naturopathic movement, they kind of have their own, they've developed their own thing maybe, or more in the line of like the detoxification, naturopathic, all these different kinds of things. But a lot of those folks have kind of rejected Erit to a certain extent, or at least, if anything, they might give a little bit of lip service to Erit, but they really don't. They really don't follow those principles. And so we are 100% Erit, dealing with Erit. And then when we bring in other naturopathic modalities, which we do, things that Erit necessarily didn't talk about, but when we do it, it's always within the context and the framework of Erit's methodology, particularly the transitional methodology, which transition diet, we're the only ones really talking seriously about that I know of. And the people that have started talking about it are people that I'm pretty sure heard us talking about it, because we were at one point, we were the only ones talking about transition diet, and we were getting a lot of flack from people that were saying, well, we're not aggressive enough. We're teaching people to make excuses or go too slow, or you need to become raw and eat nothing but fruit tomorrow. We've never ever said that. Erit didn't say that. Yet people still continue to think that and believe that Erit is the big, fruit all fruit guy, the no transition all fruit kind of situation, and that's just not true. And so let's see this next one here. Is mustard seed powder mucus forming? Happy 4th of July. Hope you're doing well. I appreciate the sentiment. I don't really celebrate 4th of July. I can't. That it was like World War whatever out there yesterday. It just all kinds of explosions and fireworks and crackers and stuff. But think about that. I mean, the kind of stimulation that would make you want to just blow stuff up for fun. I mean, I just don't. You can make fun of me if you want for being a person that is not excited about things exploding nearby. Maybe if I'm the weird one, all right, I will accept it. But that's a mucus. fast a little bit and be on a mucus-free diet for a while and see if you want to go blow some stuff up in your backyard, you know, and then I didn't even get into the barbecue, you know, the dead, all the sweet smell of dead, rotting, burning flesh in the air all over the place, just toxic environment. And but I hope you had a good day. I hope you enjoyed yourself. But your question is mustard seed powder, mucus forming. So the way that we deal with some of these powders and these kinds of things like that is as condiments. And I like what Eric had to say about condiments. If I get down to it. There it is. Okay. And I'm just showing you here, this is a good way, as I've talked about before, when you're looking things up to do to get the PDF version of the annotated Mucusless Diet, and then you can do a quick find function and find a number of things. But I highlighted this here. So Eric says, condiments are much less harmful than mucus-forming foods. The so-called poisonous table salt is a very good mucus dissolver. The average mixed starch eater could not stand this diet without salt. Of course, with the perfect mucusless diet, the want and need of salt will be eliminated automatically, and with that, the unnatural thirst. And to be clear, you know, Eric is not advocating using salt. He is acknowledging that some people would have a very hard time early on in their transition if they were forced to cold turkey get off of salt. Because again, this is not a cold turkey based diet. It's a transitional diet. Now, me personally, I was able to get off of salt right away. But as far as the mustard seed powder and onion powder or garlic powder or things along that nature, I put those into this category. Those items, I don't think they really degrade into slime, because unless you're drinking, you know, an entire thing, you're eating a whole bunch of it at once. If it's just sprinkled on something, it's probably not going to leave behind a huge slimy residue. Some of these things are acid forming, so stuff like black pepper, you know, I always avoided that because that is a bit acid forming, and so I try to avoid things that will irritate the mucus lining, you know, the mucosa. And so that's kind of the way that you want to evaluate that. It's not necessarily if it's just this is mucus forming or not mucus forming. Does it irritate your system? Does it leave behind slime? And those are some of the important questions that I think that you want to ask when you're looking at that. But as far as that goes, in my opinion, I put that within this condiments context, where you know, it's not the end of the world when you use some of these things, especially in the beginning, to kind of just kick things up a notch in terms of your whatever it is that you are preparing. If you have some kind of cooked vegetables or something like that with your salad, or you're using it in a homemade salad dressing or something like that. The main thing I do recommend staying away from the apple cider vinegar, which is, you know, Eric talks about staying away from vinegar in the book, and I've found that to be, for me personally, just from my own personal experience, a good reason to stay away from the vinegar was just because it would trigger relapses into foods that I didn't want to eat anymore, that I was trying to get away from, you know, the mucus forming stuff, you know, the burgers and, you know, all that kind of stuff. That kind of pungent, vinegary kind of thing would trigger my appetite for that kind of stuff. But then after a certain point, I just didn't crave that at all anymore, and it just it became kind of you know, just noxious. Just stay away. So yeah. So as far as that goes, I don't. If in large quantities, it might leave behind. It could leave behind a little bit of slime, but it's more along the lines of, is it acid forming and is it irritating to your system, and in very small quantities, and within the context of a condiment, it's not that big a deal to me, and so I would put it, you know, use it within that context. Let's see. Raymond read on Eric's book, Realize I have a mucus problem, but also dealing with cancer and cannot eat fruit due to the sugar. What direction or reading material can you recommend so I can figure out how to fight cancer and get rid of the mucus as well? Help. So, you know, sometimes I won't always answer these kind of questions in a public space because first of all, you know, we don't deal with disease concept in terms of, you know, I'm not, no medical credentials, I'm not a medical doctor, check out the disclaimer below about all that. And so you get into issues of people saying, you know, stuff like legal things and stuff like that. And so I have no interest in that world. I just don't have any interest in that world at all. So I don't diagnose disease. I don't really acknowledge those kind of concepts like that. The symptoms associated with human illness, that is something that we can address within the context of the Mucusless Diet Healing System. Now, like I said, normally in terms of to answer specifically, I would have to know way more about your case. I'm not one of these folks. Some people kind of give all these general recommendations and stuff in these videos, and I just can't do that because that's not how I operate when I'm doing consultations. Each person gets a very unique and specific recommendation from me that's for that person, and I've seen a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people kind of give these very general, you know, they'll read the iris and then just kind of just okay, oh, you got this weakness, that, and they'll just kind of do a very kind of just by the book recommendation. I don't do that. I take a lot of things into account. In my methodology, it's based on Eric. There's in the Mucusless Diet book where he talks about the questions that he would ask his patients. You know, I kind of adapted that and created my own questions, which I actually cover in the e-course. I give the questions that I ask my clients before I work with them. But there's things that I would need to know in terms of what's your diet like now, what was your diet like in the past, and the kinds of things that you used to really eat a whole lot. There's a number of things, data points that I really need to know. Generally speaking, though, on the point of having trouble dealing with fruit, so that is something where, again, the transitional methodology. And again, I'd be different. Some of these detox specialists out here would just tell you, oh, just fight through it. Just was like, no, you know, because I've worked with a number of people that couldn't eat fruit. And so we went back to the lessons, and in some cases they were able to use cooked fruit, and that is something that is totally lost to a lot of people, especially when they're coming from a raw food background. Eric a number of times talks about cooked fruit. So if you're unable to handle, because of various physiological weaknesses, endocrine system issues and things like that, if you're unable to really handle fruit, then you might be able to handle cooked fruit, the baked apples and applesauce, or baked banana, or there's a number of things in that realm, many of which are talked about in the Mucusless Diet book. That would be one thing to check out. But if that is even too much, then what about a bite of it? What about you have a vegetable, a salad, mucus-free salad, raw vegetables, that kind of stuff, but maybe a bite of applesauce. It might still be too aggressive. It all depends on your physiology and what's going on. But I do, the main general recommendation that I give is to deal with and analyze the transition and adapt those methodologies to what you're going through and where you're at physiologically, and experiment with those menus, experiment with some of those recipes, and kind of go from there. Now, there's only one person that I recommend to kind of follow up if you want some other answers on that specific topic. If you check out rawfigs.com, that's it's a search engine for Dr. Morris, and he has some excellent videos on that topic. And so that would be something, and like I said, it's about one of the only people that I will say, hey, if, especially since I can't work with people right now, I'm not doing consultations, or I would just say, let's have a consultation and we'll deal with it there. Can't do that right now, so that is an option. That check out some of what he had to say on that. He's got a track record of helping a lot of folks that have similar ailments or symptoms. Again, I don't like to use the C word or disease concept, but and then Brother Air, he would say where there's no such thing at all as this concept at all. It's all about physiological cleanliness, and once you get into the fasting, because then that'd be another thing. I mean, I can't, I might recommend fasting, but I might not, because I don't know your situation. But when you get into fasting, as a potential path, you get vegetable juices as a path, or the vegetable based diet, mucus-free diet path, or vegetables with a little bit of cooked fruit, or vegetables with maybe a little bit of raw fruit. There are a number of different options, but you want to find something that's sustainable as you move along. Then, depending on the condition, lemon juice enemas might be recommended. So there's a number of things. But so I hope this is helpful. Like I said, it's kind of hard for me to get into too much detail in this type of video and setting, especially without knowing all the details about your background in terms of that. But just keep on studying, keep on going through the book, applying the principles, and doing what you can do, and just keep on pushing. Let's see, Sarah, if there's any questions. Not questions yet, but it says she fell off of the Eric bandwagon for a while, and now has has a serious health situation, but back on track and reading Spira Speaks, and says already got the new book, which is the physical fitness book, which we just released very shortly ago, and I heard of you from my daughter, who goes to ComFest every year, and next year I hope to attend too and hear you in person and meet you. And I actually posted up the ComFest talk that I gave this year up on the channel, and so yeah, I mean, hey, all we can do is pick yourself back up and get on again, and just keep on transitioning, and don't, first of all, don't be hard on yourself, and then second, really spend time. I don't know, we use that term transition, but I'm wondering if people really spend time analyzing and deeply thinking. I mean, this could be almost part of a meditation session, and multiple meditation sessions, not where you're you should be relaxed when you do it. You know, I think of it as a, you know, it's like a transition, like, you know, how people say Om and they have different things they focus on. Sometimes I'll meditate and focus on the transition concept, but in my mind I might, you know, I see seasons changing and children growing into adults, and just transition is life. It's all around us. There's nothing that is not transitioning. And I try to get that point across because people still have this negative connotation with transition, as if it's some kind of, you know, like you're going too slow or you're not, whatever. You know, to me, an embryo into a baby, that's a transition. A baby into a teenager or an adult, it's all a transition. This is all evolutional transformations it's constantly happening. See, we have the misinterpretation of things starting and stopping just partly because we, you know, a lot of us pass out for hours every day, and so it feels like we started our day, we stopped it, we started it, but in actuality, there is no start and stop to the day. You might lose consciousness for some hours, but that doesn't mean that anything stopped. You know, the everything is still moving, it's still transitioning, and it's doing so gradually. And Eric point when he says that nature works through evolutional processes and not through catastrophe, that's what he's talking about. That this is not about trying to, you know, reinvent the wheel. It's already out here. All the principles of transition, they are natural, and they're out here for us to observe. But when you think about yourself and you kind of, like I said, be calm. I'm not advocating any kind of. If you find yourself thinking about these things and starting to get emotional or getting any kind of anxiety, stop. Go have fun. Go into the park. Play some music. Do something other than think about diet. Because I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that anxiety type of thing. What I'm talking about is you should be calm. And trying to find that, and I know it's hard for some of us, especially when you're coming out of that mucus world, because sometimes it's hard to think. You know, it's hard to focus or just stay still. A lot of those meditation principles, you know, it's about, you know, kind of staying still and clearing your mind out. And for me, when you really think about your situation, thinking about how you used to eat in your bloodline. How far back in your bloodline do you have to go before you would get to as a vegetarian eater or a fruit eater? You know, how much bloodline do we have to clean up before we get to where we're trying to go? That should put this into perspective, that we have generations and generations of ancestors, you know, going against nature's laws, and we don't need to be hard on ourselves. We need to be honest with ourselves about where we are physiologically and work the system. You know, as Brother Eric says, he often goes back to week 1, week 2. And works on those lessons. You know, he might tweak them a bit, not do them every time, do it exactly, you know, have it refined, you know, it can be refined every time you do it. Every time you go back to some of those lessons or those recipes, it can be refined. Maybe in the beginning of your transition, you did use salt. Then you go back, you know, months later and you start those weeks over again, but now you're not using salt anymore, or you've cut out. If you were using cottage cheese, you cut the cottage cheese out. You know, those kinds of things. Those, like Brother Air said, when he got off of he used to put a lot of sugar on cereal, and that was a huge transitional step for him, just to stop using sugar on cereal. And so those are that's the stuff we should celebrate. It's the little things. It's not the, people get so hung up on so and so did this long fast or ate nothing but fruit for a long time. I've done a lot of those things, but I don't like to even talk about them because it gets people excited in the wrong way, in my opinion. We shouldn't. If that makes sense, we want to be excited. I would like to see people excited about the transition, personally. But when I did long fast, I was never trying to prove anything to anybody, or it wasn't public. I didn't tell people about it. Now it's become a thing to do. As soon as you you fast more than several days, you're doing a video about it, you're writing about it or something like that. And so it's a different time now, but I just caution folks you should be as excited, if not more excited, about the daily transition diet as you would be doing a month-long juice fast or dry fast or anything like that. Let the fasting develop. First, deal with Eric's methodologies, and then let the fasting develop as you develop, as your transition goes along, and it will be much more powerful when you have a strong transitional track record behind you and you start to get into some of the more advanced fasting and things that even go beyond Eric's recommendations. You're going to be in a good position, and you'll be less likely to really kind of fall off the bandwagon there. And so, and I know this is this is kind of general. This isn't directed all at Sarah, but it's kind of this general thing of, we just everybody's on a rush, and I'd rather see somebody take their time and maybe continue to eat some foods and some combinations that is not great, but you're on the path. And if you're doing the enemas, you're doing enemas. If you're doing a two-day fast here and there, you're doing that, or whatever it is you're doing it methodically, and there's no pressure. That was one thing I was very happy to get started practicing the diet when I did, because there wasn't this online pressure to be raw or to try and live up to what people are doing on YouTube. And I've said in other videos before, don't do that. Don't try to watch videos of other people talking about what they did and then try to match yourself up to that, because that's not what this physiological thing is about. It's not a game. It's not a competition. We can pat each other on the back for what happens, what we do, just being, we have to kind of pat each other on the back. It's a tough path, and you'll never see me saying this is an easy path. So I try to warn people, like, this it takes work and dedication, and it's tough, it's tough. But my theory is that the better and the more effective your application of your transitional methodology, the better you'll be able to really practice. The more enjoyable it's going to be. And so this next one is from Nature, and it's a little bit long. I'll try to maybe summarize a little bit, but can you explain from your understanding from a mucusless diet perspective how it is that humans are meant to be raw, mucusless fruit and plant eaters when none of the fruits or plants that we consume today exist in nature? And that is something, I know that there's a lot of folks that have really gotten into the hybrid theory of, staying away from these fruits and vegetables that have been considered hybrid. But as you said there, and from my observation, I mean, there's no fruits or vegetables around today that have been around this whole time that without changing. Because again, the evolutional changes. So some things have been changed in nature. And there have been some things that humans selectively breeded. But in terms of the claim that if anything that has maybe been selectively bred in some way by a human, that it automatically is mucus forming or that it's automatically starchy, that's just not true. So there are things that would technically be hybrid that are 100% mucus free and are not acid forming. Am I recommending to use those? I'm recommending to not worry about that whole mindset. People gonna get mad at me, or fine. You can check out the foodless diets and that kind of stuff. That's way too much. It's like way too much stress, especially when if you're trying to combine what the folks that talk about that, if you're trying to combine that with Arnold Ehret's Mucusless Diet Healing System, then you're gonna be miserable, because you literally won't have nothing that you can eat. And I've seen people, and I get that question where people say, okay, you have this on your list and say you can eat this, but then Dr. Sebi's list says this, and aren't these hybrid, and isn't that? And for me, the beauty of Ehret's approach was, let's just focus on what degrades into slime and what doesn't. And once we can figure that out, we can figure out what turns into slime and what doesn't, then we are going to be in a better situation, in my opinion. I always recommend getting the best fruits and vegetables that you possibly can. The best that you can afford, the best that you can find. If you can grow it yourself, grow it yourself. If you can move to someplace better that has better fruit and vegetables, do it. Move, save up your money. I always recommend that. But there's a lot of people that's not viable, and I don't like that putting off stuff where some people say, well, where they continue to eat the way they're eating, but in their head they're like, well, I'm saving my money, I'm gonna be moving, I'm going down to the tropics, as soon as I make this money. And it's like, but you're still going to McDonald's. Like, in the meantime, make some baked squash and salad, or have some baked banana, or some eat more fruit and do some enemas in the meantime, while you are focused on your dreams of taking it to the next level. Don't let that be an excuse. Putting it off because you want to try to go someplace. You can get started right now wherever you are in the planet. You can apply the principles of Mucusless diet, even if all you have available is canned fruits and vegetables. If you're in someplace in an economy where there's no produce nowhere, you can still apply the transitional principles of the Mucusless diet, even in some of the worst of environments. But you just have to accept your situation and then be working toward improving it, because that's all that we can do. And so all this added pressure, to me, it's useless. I don't like that. I don't like that type of vibration where people are all so, there's people get angry. They're angry about other people that maybe, because with the hybrid thing, you literally would, I don't even know what you would eat, because first of all, nobody's in agreement with what is and is not hybrid. There's a number of different lists and different leaders that have kind of bestowed their blessing on different lists and concepts. My question is, does it eliminate Are you having natural bowel movements? Is it coming out, or is there a slime residue left behind? Or is it coming out slimy? I mean, it's night and day. I can tell when I'm eating totally mucus-free and I have a bowel movement and I don't have to wipe, for instance, because there's no slime. Soon as if I start eating some mucus, now it's time. Now we got to wipe. Now we back to the old wiping again. But you won't know unless I don't know what book you read that in. Is there? I mean, he doesn't even really talk real specific about that. But I've had that experience of periods of time where I was eating totally mucus-free, and I have a bowel movement, and I wipe, and there's no residue at all. But don't let me eat something like an avocado, which it leaves behind terrible residue. It's so very slimy kind of eliminations with that. So let's see, here we go. Keep going with this question. In my understanding, most fruit has its origin in much smaller, less sweet, more seeded varieties, which surely would not have been very attractive to eat or sustain us. Also, in the vegetable kingdom, most plants in nature are extremely tough, fibrous, and bitter, and in my experience seem to have compounds in them which, when eaten in very moderately significant quantities, prove to be non-viable food sources for humankind. Even tender greens like sunflower sprouts or spinach, when eaten in moderate quantities, leave one's mouth with a strange chalky filmy coating and produce a strange frothy foamy saliva response. Now that's actually based on your physiology. So that's not something that is automatic all the way through. And that really goes for the secretion of anything. If you're eating something that has any kind of astringency, that's why some people say, oh, lemons and limes are mucus forming, because they think because they ate it and they got a mouthful of mucus that they had to spit out, they relate that, oh, well, it must be mucus forming. No, there's astringent properties in a number of fruits, and even vegetables sometimes hit the mucosa in a certain way, and it's going to release a little bit of lymph fluid. The mucus from the lymphatic system is not the same mucus that we talk about when we talk about undigested, uneliminated, unnatural food substances that can stay dormant or lay in your gut for a long time. There's a relationship, because the more constipated you get in terms of you backing up with uneliminated fecal matter, and there's a lot of residue that's uneliminated, that the digestive process was unable to deal with, and you have the slimy residue, and that slimy residue over years and decades starts to get nastier and nastier, then that's that is going to have an effect on the entire body, where you ultimately it's going to have a negative effect on the lymphatic system, and your lymphatic system will back up. Kidney stop filtering, so on and so forth. Is a lot of you know that story. Let's see, the Mucusless diet rides on the theory that humans devolved through eating, which would imply that we gave up breatharianism and immortality for some kind of bitter, seedy fruit variety or leafy green, which seems unfathomable and implausible. How do you explain and understand that foods we eat today are the product of manipulation and hybridization, thus the argument that we once ate mangoes or grapes is not plausible? Or is it? Is there something I have missed in my studies and investigations where there are mangoes and grapes as we know them today 60 million years ago? So I like what Brother Air has to say about this. The reason that we eat is for cleansing, to cleanse the body. The vegetables have more of a fibrous, kind of rougher cleansing ability, and then the fruits have the astringent properties and cleanse the bloodstream on a different level. But when you start to think about food from the perspective of cleansing and how is this going to move through my body and leave behind the least amount of nasty waste material, that kind of puts it all into different perspective. And so that's why, it's one reason why we're not obsessed with the hybrid kind of stuff, because like you said, everything everything is hybrid. There's nothing around that is exactly what it was years and years ago. And you bring up breatharian concept and that kind of thing. And let me bring up what Eric had to say, which is kind of interesting. Eric, in the final, the very end of the Mucusless Diet Healing System book, Eric says, everyone who travels a little further upwards on the road towards the paradise-like conditions of humans will soon sense the truth. Humans were once a higher, superior kind of being, not a species of the monkey family. We are only a shade of the original human caused through our degeneration, but you may yet experience what cannot be described, that this kind of eugenics is the fundamental truth of the evolution into heaven on earth. So he packs a lot in there, and it's real interesting right there, where he basically dispels the evolution kind of concept and reverses it, and he doesn't get much specificity in terms of the theory, but it's if you infer from what he wrote, you can deduce that he believes that humans were perhaps an entity that has always been no beginning, no ending kind of concept, which would go along that kind of theological framework within which he's working. And so this is where this is the tradition of philosophy, the philosophical scientist, the old school scientist, not what science become now, but if you look, there's a tradition of science, that the Leonardo da Vinci tradition, and Sir Isaac Newton tradition, and that's where Eric fits. He fits in there. Very clear and thinkers that were thinking beyond the confines of what some of what the people around them were trying to do. As far as why humans did this, why they started to eat, I mean, that's, that is an ancient. That is the question. I mean, to eat or not to eat, that is the question. I mean, that is probably the heaviest historical question that we can deal with. And I don't have the answer. I don't know. I have no clue. Different religious and theological backgrounds have different concepts and explain the why differently. There's a number of traditions that talk about that the godlike people got bored and started to dabble in doing things that were outside of the realm. Then there's of nature. Then there's other stories, and some of the kind of biblical stories that are more to some kind of inherent flaw in the human that kind of got exacerbated and led to all this. That again transitioned over time. We didn't get to the point where we have late night Taco Bell, McDonald's overnight. That was a serious transition to get to that, because even the worst eaters 200, 300 years ago wouldn't be able to hang with if they just all of a sudden started to eat this food a lot. A lot of them, depending on where they were in the earth, they didn't live that long to begin with. They always say the average European lived in the medieval days, even the Renaissance days, I think, they say like 35 years of age or something like that was the average age. Now I say Europe because they always try to say humans in general, but folks in Asia, folks in Africa, Middle East, India, they don't factor that in. It's a very Eurocentric kind of perspective. When they start talking like that, when they start saying, well, you know, the history of humans and this and that. No, you talking about the history of Europeans. If you actually want to talk about the history of humans and look back into the Africans and that kind of thing, that would be those are interesting studies. You know, you start to really look at some of the findings and things about the history of these diets. That's fairly interesting. But as far as this goes, yeah, I have no clue why humans, why we did this, other than there was a flaw. You know, there was some kind of flaw in one of us somewhere. And you know, and maybe you know, Earth became the prison cell for, you know, this warring planet. This was kind of the place, like, okay, put the eaters over there. EAT is in the word Earth. You know, just put the creatures all in one place and let them go through their process. Go through this is a learning process, and you know, we got work to do. You know, I look at it like the party of Earth has already ended, and we have to. We're the janitors. We're just trying to clean this whole mess up. And but these are the questions. I mean, these are the fundamental questions that we are exploring. Like where Eric talks about, you know, we don't know how long a human can go without food. You know, he never said that we could exist without food, but the theoretical framework asked that question. It's okay to ask that question and say, well, what happens if, what kind of physiology is able to fast for longer periods of time and do so in a I'd say a healthy way, or a way that doesn't debilitate them. As I'm not talking about, you know, folks that trying to get on Ripley's, believe it or not, trying to do some kind of long fast, but had really got to the point, you know, when Eric started doing long fast, where he held the world record for the longest fast for a while. Yeah, he had been transitioning for quite a bit before he had got to that level. So of course, you know, a lot more to say on this subject, but I'm gonna keep on going here to keep trying to move through some of these. But thanks for that question, man. And we'll, you know, and I want to get more into that, some of the philosophical things, and explore those ideas more in the future. You know, I held off for a long time on purpose, because I didn't want to take the focus away from transition, because nobody was focusing on transition. And so I wanted to keep it on practical matters and try not to get too far out into the philosophical weeds. But, you know, now we're, you know, trying to, I think it is good for some of us that want to have some of these thoughts and look forward. It is good to explore these ideas, and that's the tradition of philosophy. I don't see a lot of people have, you know, there's not a lot of philosophers. There's a lot of professors of philosophy that talk about the philosophies of other people, but we don't have a whole lot of authentic philosophers that really know how to think, you know, that know how to work through these ideas, and do so in a way that's not emotional too. That's the other thing, where a lot of theology and stuff gets into this very, very emotional kind of thing, which I'm just not a fan of that. I'd rather have objective thinking and analysis and logical. Where's logic? That's talk about a missing art form. Rarely see people getting into like a real logical discussion that doesn't turn into some kind of emotional fight. And so these are the art forms and the disciplines that I would love to see cultivated within mucus-free community, because I think we can do it. I think we can get into that space, but we have to you know, get ourselves to a certain level where we're halfway calm. Yeah, so Sarah, what's your opinion of kimchi and other fermented foods in general? I'm not a fan of a lot of fermented foods. Eric talks about sauerkraut. There are instances where maybe, I mean, that's about as far as I would recommend or go, is some sauerkraut that has not been that's without vinegar. You know, they make some of it without the vinegar. But generally, I'm not a fan of fermented foods. Just personally, and based on Eric's work, I've never really used it. There was one time where I experimented with sauerkraut just because I wanted to see what it would do physiologically. As I've done a lot of experiments over the years just to find out that eating things that I wouldn't have necessarily eaten, just to see what it would do physiologically, so that I could pass that data on and use that when I'm working with people. So there have been instances where I might have recommended something like sauerkraut, if somebody had a certain physiological situation. But generally, if it's something that you're already into, then it can be a transitional kind of situation. But overall, I would say let's get into the living foods. And I don't consider, I know some people say, oh, well, the fermented, it's alive, it's raw. Like, I'm not. No, I mean, it's like I don't want things living in it. I don't need parasitic kinds of things in my food. I just want something that's not turning into jelly in front of me. And I know that there was someone I work with that actually I'd heard from. I haven't talked to her yet, but that I didn't even know what kombucha tea was, and the person that introduced me to kombucha tea, I had no clue. And they're like, here, try it. And I was like, oh, okay, so it's tea? And they're like, yeah, it's kombucha. And I didn't know what it was. And it took the top off, and I smelled it, and I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not drinking that. It's awful. I mean, why would you want to drink that? Why would you want to put something that's so pungent in your body? But that is the condition of the human, that the human finds itself in, is we like decaying dead things. It's physiologically, we enjoy that. We like the pungent and that that kind of thing. I mean, who in their right mind would choose rotten grape juice versus fresh grape juice? And yet this society and world has created a fetish of wine. Every little corner store and supermarket that you go to has these wine aisles and just alcoholic beverages aisles in general. That is that's remarkable. I mean, I just it's like, what is going on? But that's the thing, But that's the logic here. I found a picture of this. Yeah, I mean, just it's like, okay, if it'd be one thing if there was maybe two of these places in a community, or a place where it was like some kind of real special, unique, where if you are a connoisseur of rotten liquid, then you could find it. But this is normal. I mean, everywhere, billions of bottles of rotten fruit juice. And there's an old video you have to find on the channel where I do this kind of analysis. I think it's a funny video, but I do this comparison between prison beer, where people in prison will take fruit juice and maybe some fruit rinds, and they'll take an old sweaty sock and put it in a plastic bag and tie it up and put it under the bunk, and then let it sit there for about a week, and it ferments and rots and turns into this what they prison beer, this crazy nasty alcoholic drink, and they drink it and get crazy. And I was comparing that to there was some documentary on some guy in France in his vineyard and how respectable he was, and he's drinking, and they're talking about, oh, this is so sophisticated, and I'm saying it's not sophisticated, it's the same. there is not, to me, there's no difference between your prison beer that you made with the dirty sweat sock and the $50,000 bottle of wine. It's all represents decline, and it's ridiculous, man. This kind of stuff. But anyway, so there's fermented foods. Yeah, not a huge fan. I mean, we want to get away from the fermentation. We want to get that all that out of our body. We want to get rid of it. So I'm not a fan of putting it back in. And there's other options if you're having trouble with digestive issues and that kind of stuff. The mucusless diet has a different answer and a different methodology than you might get from a raw foodist that says, well, just eat a bunch of fermented. If you're not having natural bowel movements, go eat a bunch of fermented foods. There's a little bit more sophisticated methodologies that we use that don't rely on fermented foods, that can help you create intestinal broom naturally with the right combination of foods and the right combination salad, or raisins and different dried fruits and things, followed by juicy fruits. So there's other stuff that you can do to get your bowels rolling. Let's see. I think this is our last question. All right, and I know I haven't kept track of the live chat here. I'll get to some of these in a moment. Let's see. I will check out the live chat in a minute. But let me answer this question. I would like to know, what is the research used for determining whether a food is acid or mucus forming in the body? Raw foodists rave about how all cooked food is harmful to the body, but most fruitarians consume avocados, nuts, seeds, and coconut, which I see you list as mildly mucus forming, acid forming, whereas some cooked vegetables are not. Exactly. I mean, that's what I try to explain. Mucusless Diet Healing System is not raw foodism. It's not fruitarianism. It's the Mucusless Diet Healing, operative word, system. And one must deal with the system. And so we get a lot of raw foodists that get excited about Eric's work because he is talking about and believes that humans are fundamentally fruit eaters, but there's a difference between the philosophy and the recommendation of what you practically should and can do in your life for your transition. And so he lays all that out, transition diet. So I recommend read those lessons over and over and over again until you really get it. Like, okay, I'm transitioning. This is what this is. And that's literally something I'm really trying to kind of fight against. And what I've done is tried to create a safe haven for raw food folks that fall off the wagon of the raw food, and instead of going into the paleo diet or eating nothing, kind of a Atkins diet or meat-based kind of diet, because you ate nothing but fruit for months, which Eric never recommended that. But there are some raw foodists and people out there that are recommending that, or doing a 40-day water fast. Eric does not recommend doing long-term fasting. He recommends the longest he actually recommends doing a fast is 2 days. The 2 to 3 day kind of fasting methodology. He talks about, and the logic of transition can lead you to longer fasting, but in terms of when you're getting started and you're working with these principles, it's short-term fasts. And so like I say, anytime you go beyond those 2 to 3 days that Eric recommends, you're on your own. So don't blame Eric if you have problems and you're not following those principles. So I don't know. So for me, I'm passionate about, it's been a tough line to kind of walk this little tightrope the past several years, because I didn't want to totally turn off the raw foodists, because a lot of that I was helping so many raw foodists, but doing so in a way that didn't try to make them feel guilty for what they're doing, even though they would try to, some of them would look down on somebody that would eat some cooked mucus-free vegetables or fruit. I mean, nobody was talking about cooked fruits until I started saying, hey, this is like an entirely neglected area of the transition. And you have people talking about that they're real advanced and they've never had cooked fruit. They've never passed through that level of the transition. To me, that's an important level and place to plateau at for a while, to experience that and to get, I mean, that's one of the ways to help get the digestion rolling. What's going on? I see. But so I'm passionate about that. I really want to see people get excited about the transition, analyze and apply those principles, and not be so hard on themselves, and give Eric's methodologies a shot while kind of like Brother Eric says about some things, take the raw foodist dogma and ideology and put it on the mantelpiece. So I'm not even saying throw it out. Just put it over here for a moment and deal with this. Deal with Eric's methodologies and let yourself deal with the cooked mucus-free foods and the cooked vegetables combined with the raw, because you never eat cooked without raw. That's a pretty big principle that I don't see anybody else talking about. When you do eat the cooked, always put it with the raw, but don't feel guilty about eating the cooked. And so it's an issue. And as I was scanning real quick on the comments that people had, that was something somebody asked about. A lot of people that used to practice Mucusless diet are kind of bailing, and almost all of the people that I know that some bail and then some kind of fall off the wagon and you don't hear from them a while, and then they start again, but this time they're not public, or this time they're just staying quiet and focusing on their transition instead of trying to be like a public figure, sharing all their stuff. This is something that's happened years and years. I've seen this over and over and over again with people. But generally, when folks are unsuccessful, the transition has not been applied properly, slow enough, and there was an obsession with trying to become raw as fast as possible, trying to become mucus-free as fast as possible, trying to do long-term fasting, overdoing the enemas where we don't, I recommend that people deal with the enema on their base, on their basis. I kind of say, those, you need at least a couple weeks of doing them regularly to see what they're about. And then after those couple weeks, you do what you want. That's my message. Brother Air, he'd say just keep on rolling with them. There are circumstances where people can't handle the enemas. I'll say that because I've worked with them. I know that that's the situation. But generally, for the average, you use the word average, but for most people, the enemas can be a huge asset and benefit and part of the transformational process. Just totally transform your life, like within a week or two of doing these enemas, while combining them with the transition diet and the Mucusless Diet Healing System. I wanted to bring up in response to this question, I have a list on the website. It's if you look up Professor Spira's Mucusless Diet food list. And so this is a list, I consider it practical foods. So it has a list, and these are kind of my favorite foods that I used on my transition, but we have, this is all the mucus-free stuff. But then we get down to, again, the, let's see, do I got the cook? Okay, just dried or baked fruits, you know, so baked apples, baked bananas, you can bake cherries, figs, baked, I mean, I baked pineapple before. Then you get down to vegetables. But what I'm kind of going through all this part fast. And you can go and check this list out, because it's not a comprehensive list of every food that could be used. This is just my personal list of things that I found useful, that I used during different parts of my transition. But once you get down here, baked or steamed vegetables, and baked fruit, baked acorn squash. I got there's a blog post that I have up here on the website of step-by-step recipe. So I've never really been a huge recipe sharing person, but I tried to put a couple recipes of cooked mucus-free foods so that people would see what I'm talking about. Like, okay, here's the pictures, here's how you make it, and if you're having a problem or you're craving something crazy, maybe you've eaten nothing but raw fruit for 2 months and now you're actually craving meat. This is definitely, I recommend exploring the cooked mucus-free realm, and before giving into the Atkins world. And let's see, but yeah, because even things, because people got this all or nothing notion that you have to be totally mucus-free or you're cheating or you're not. It's like, no, it's not cheating. I hate that concept of, oh, I had a cheat day. What's that? No, there ain't no cheating. It's called transitioning. And I don't mean for you to use that as an excuse to just like go eat whatever you want. But that's where, in my opinion, you get into the art of this, where this becomes the art form of how do you have a have a methodology about it. There's a method. When I made these transitional little kind of pizza type of things early on in my transition, I knew that I wasn't going to eat those things forever, but I was a craving that I had, and I was able to find something that was way better than what I craved and was within the context and inspired by some recipes that I'd read in the Mucusless Diet book. And so I was able to find that groove, and that's what you want to do. You want to find these grooves. But the sweet potato, baked spaghetti squash, the green peas, steamed carrots. People would crucify me for recommending a carrot because they're hybrid. People act like the way they talk about it like it's on the level of some meat or something. You're like, and for the raw foodist, I'm a coin a term tonight. I'm gonna call them hybridists. So you got raw foodists that will crucify you for anything a little bit cooked is against the law, and you will be damned for all time. They get into this like fire and brimstone emotion with it. Then you have the hybridists. I like that. Use that the people that are into the hybrid theory, the hybridists that say, because anytime you're talking to somebody where it's an all or nothing proposition, to me that's a problem. People try to put that on us, like we have this all or nothing proposition with mucus-free and non-mucus forming, when if you listen to us talk for 5 minutes, you know that that's not true. That I never attack anybody or would try to ever make somebody feel bad because they ate some mucus-forming foods. and especially within the context of the transition diet, you know, no, not when you're doing when you're practicing the transition, and you going along and you have a method to what you're doing. That's what it's all about. But the hybridist, I like that, the hybridist, the raw foodist, the fruitarians, a lot of these folks that are so extremist. You know, Eric talks about that several times. You know, calls you know, fruitarian extremists, and then uses that term. And in fact, let me see if I can find. Let me find that. Actually, I know what I'll do. But so anyway, with us, we're trying to not do that. You know, it's not about that. It's about transitioning. And now if you're going along and you go a week or two and you're eating a bunch of vegetarian stuff or vegan stuff, but you don't have a salad anywhere, you're not really on no kind of time schedule. You're just eating when you feel like it, or you're skipping days of fruit and stuff. If that kind of haphazard, I encourage you to get back on the program. That's not Mucusless Diet Healing System practice. You know, that's not the transition. But if you're eating some of those things, but it's within the context of the transition and the methodologies, always having the raw salad. Oh, I mean, if there was anything that I was always hardcore about, whenever I ate anything mucus forming in the vegetable world or cooked mucus forming or whatever, always had a raw combination salad or broom salad, and that would help whatever it was I was eating eliminate better, because some of the mucus forming stuff doesn't eliminate. And one of the ways you know it doesn't eliminate is if you get acid reflux. And so I would never get acid reflux when I was eating mucus-free, and then I start bringing in some mucus-forming foods, and all of a sudden I get that acid in my throat, or I feel that stuff kind of gurgling up, and that's a problem. Definition of mucus lean refers to the period of dietary transition in the mucusless diet where mucus-forming foods are used along with mucusless ones. Mucus lean menus are generally less harmful than standard mucus-forming eating habits by a non-practitioner and are an important part of the overall transition in systematic healing methods employed in the mucusless diet healing system. Super important, and not all of us use, that I kind of reinvigorated that term mucus lean. Brother Air never even really used that concept and term. He just think one way, transition, and everything's within the context of the transition. But I found it helpful to kind of have this mucus lean where, some days you have what we would call a mucus lean meal. Other days you'd be totally mucus free. And so the art of the transition is learning how to line all of this up and continually move forward with your physiology and find good plateaus. I'm a fan of finding comfortable plateaus where you can hang out and eat in a certain way for a while, and continue to see your body transform. A lot of people are not teaching that. They're teaching, hurry up, you gotta be raw yesterday, and you too slow, hurry up, eat number fruit, hurry, you slow, and then you're not good enough, and then it gets like it gets worse and worse, like, oh, you're eating that. Then on the other hand, there's the number of hybridists. Some of the food combinations that I see them eating, I would have to criticize those. It's like a plate full of mucus-forming foods with no salad, and they'll put the term my electrical meal. Like, there's nothing electrical about that meal. That's a bunch of overcooked. Is another part of the Mucusless diet methodology, is knowing how long. We don't overcook stuff. We cook stuff just a little bit, just boom, just hit it to make it so that it eliminates well. But you don't want to overcook stuff, because then it's not gonna move and eliminate. So I've seen in some of these hybridist based groups where they'll be taking pictures of their food, and it's like the entire plate is stuff that is not going to eliminate well. I don't see anything raw on there at all, and that would be the Mucusless principle of, if you're going to have, when we have something cooked, it's not a lot. It's generally, it's like a portion, but you always have your raw salad with you. A couple other things here, the beans. I mean, I used beans. I had no problem using beans on my transition. Again, that would be something that some people would cry and yell at me for being such a terrible person for having used something so horrid on my transition, but it's really wasn't that bad for me. It would eliminate, and again, I would rather see just me personally, I'd rather see someone eating cooked beans with a salad, and when they have a bowel movement, the wiping is moderate versus being all raw and eating avocado, and you sitting here wiping like, like you go through a whole thing of toilet paper because of the slime residue that's left behind. Maybe that's just my physiology. It might, if it eliminates perfectly for you, then I love you, because it doesn't for me. It definitely leaves behind that slimy residue. Nuts and seeds, another thing. Eric recommends nuts and raisins. Good. So that was a principle that ever since for past 15 years, I'm almost always had raisins or some kind of dried fruit when I ate nuts, because I thought that was a great recommendation. Early on, when I tried to have nuts with no raisins, it did not feel good. And so ever since then, if I have nuts, I have raisins with it. So those are the kinds of things I'm talking about when I talk about methodology and that kind of thing. And so anyway, I could keep going through this kind of list forever, but I do want to get to some of your comments here. How many do we got quite a few comments. Actually, what I want to do is so I'm gonna take a quick break, and I want to share some music with you. So this is something that we did last year. This is Brother Air, and actually now I gotta find that video again. But this is something that we did last year, and I am excited to share this with you. It took me a while before I was able to get the time to do this. But here, let me take a moment and look this up real quick. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I'm calling this Mucus-free Jam. So this is just it's about 5 minutes long or something. So I'm gonna let you guys check this out, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna look at the comments that you guys have had, and while we're doing this, I'll take a look at some of the comments that are in the live feed, and I'll come back and address some of what you guys are asking about in the live feed, and then we will end our office hour for today. But I do really appreciate you guys being here. So thankful just to be able to have this conversation with you, and check below for links if you're interested in some of the things I was talking about before. And yeah, we are going to have a little bit of fun here. So here we go. All right, brothers and sisters, thanks for hanging in there with me. I hope you enjoyed a little bit of music, a little mucus-free music there with Janan Al-Jahani, Takora, and Brother Air and myself. And we actually did that last year. And actually, I'll post that up sometime soon. I'll actually go ahead and post that one up on the channel. But yeah, I've been wanting to share that one for quite a while. I like that. I like that a lot. I thought that turned out good. And of course, the original one that we did was quite a bit longer. So what I want to do now is try to go through some of the questions that were asked on the in the what's it called, in the chat. So let's let me see if there's a good way to. Okay, I guess I can do it like this. I don't know how to make that bigger, but all right. So I'm gonna just go through these. I haven't read them yet, so we'll see what happens, and I'm gonna try to kind of go briskly, because I planned on this session being about an hour. It's almost been 2 hours, so that those plans never go. But I'm feeling good, and I want to keep on going through it. I like to talk with you guys. So as I said, and I'll kind of read these because it's probably too small to see there. But the first one, nobody is watching this, dude. You should stop. Like I said, I appreciate your input. That's remarkable input that you have there. Let's see here. Then thanks for starting the series. Well, thank you. Do you feel that herbs are ever necessary? There are. I think that they can be. There's times when they can be used in a positive manner. What I'm not a fan of is automatically recommending herbs immediately before you even hear anything about what the person is going through and what's happening. A lot of the herb promoters and peddlers, before you can even hear what a person is going through, they're already recommending a whole laundry list of herbs, when there's a lot of stuff that can be handled with the just the general Eric's general recommendations. Now, with that said, Eric did use herbs. His interclean bowel formula is really one of the fundamental formulas that influenced a lot of the herbalists after Erit. So Erit wasn't a huge herbalist in the sense of recommending herbs for all this kind of stuff, but it was a part of the methodology. One thing that I really like about Erit is that he would do things like that where nowhere else in the entire Mucusless Diet book does he really talk about or stress herbs, yet he created an herbal formula. So obviously he's studied in herbology of his time, and he just didn't make a big deal about it. It's just, here you go. Here's a herbal formula for this. His focus was on elimination. And so as far as herbs go, I think that they can be very helpful in some circumstances, but this kind of fetishization and is not cool. I'm not a fan of trading in the medicines for herbs, and that's what a lot of people are doing. I mean, I went 10 years of practicing the Mucusless Diet Healing System before I started experimenting with herbs. And then when I started studying and experimenting with them, I did so in a big way. And I've yet to talk publicly about my findings and that kind of thing, because I tend to, I'm not one of these people that like to talk about what I'm researching right away. You know, I like to sit with things for years. And I might, in 2025 or 2030, there might be a book that I might publish a book of my findings of things that I've come across in my study and analysis of herbs, and the way that I look at it is different from anybody I've seen talk about them and deal with them. But I'm looking at it through an Erit kind of lens and filter where it's about the elimination and circulation. You know, so if you can get into things that's going to promote the circulation, but then there's certain things that you put on your salad that would be, you know, herbs, whether it be if you use something like horseradish root, which was something that Erit talked about, and there's a horseradish root kind of therapy that I developed that's based on Erit's recommendation of using it. But I don't recommend that to everybody automatically. It's something that I recommend to certain clients or certain people that I work with, and they've already tried certain things. It's like, okay, we'll try the horseradish root methodology. So my thing is, we have all of these things at our disposal in nature, and they're tools. And the key is using the right tool at the right time, and that's the art. You know, that's the art of healing, the art of transition, the art of Mucusless Diet is the art of knowing when, where, and why to use this particular tool and not that tool. As we have these tools at our disposal, and so that's kind of my commentary on that. Wish I could join the Mucus-free Life team. I'll join you guys later when my so-called illness is more stable. Okay, well, we would be happy to have you. Just reach out whenever you're ready. At least to help with laxative like Yellow Doc. It is an extreme laxative, and loads of mucus comes out when it is taken. So you guys are talking about specific herbs, and then okay, Alvin said, yeah, they are a tool, they can be useful. Then let's see, Randy's saying, so many people dropping out of the Mucusless Diet Healing System lately after a few years on the path. Dr. Morris actually feels that balance is more important than physiological excellence. Do we don't have the consciousness, or don't we have the consciousness? So this is where we're getting, we get into the methodologies and differences of opinion and things on how you move forward with these kind of things. And so those in the area of transition, for me, that's my expertise in terms of if I'm working with somebody or talking to somebody, and I collect the necessary data, I stand behind my recommendations in terms of and it's usually something they might not have thought about on their own, but I can find the cracks, the things that you can eat that's not as bad as what you would eat if you were left to your own devices, but it's not as aggressive as trying to be all raw or eat a lot of fruit or even be mucus free. It's those cracks, and finding the plateau points is key. And so to me, we don't transition itself. The balance is in there. If you're unbalanced on the transition, you're in my opinion, you're too aggressive. You're trying to be too aggressive, and some of the folks that are falling off the mucus diet now that I'm seeing, again, they had the misfortune, I believe, of coming to all of this information at a time when it's kind of a blessing and a curse, in a time when there was so much different information and different points of view, and the internet lifestyle promotes a buffet approach to natural healing. So listen to everybody and take a little bit from everybody. That is what so many people are doing right now. And I'm not for that. I'm for find your modality. Find the thing that you're gonna master. If it's the mucusless diet and Eric's methodology, then master that information. Dig deep. I own pretty much every book that's in the mucusless diet. I own and have read multiple times. So I researched and researched, got deeper and deeper and deeper. And when you do that, it ultimately expands outward. And so you feel like you're getting deep in, and then you find yourself studying, physiology books, or taking mainstream classes in human physiology or nutrition, and you're able to actually do something interesting with that information. And so I'm for people studying, but I'm for people. There's a way that you can study, in my opinion. And studying is an art, but there's a way that you can do it where you're rooted somewhere. Because even when I'm talking to somebody, even if I don't agree with everything that's in there of what they believe and their methodology they use, if they're a master of their domain and they've gotten really deep into their stuff, I've noticed I can have a meaningful conversation with them, because we can relate. If we disagree on the details of what we're talking about, we connect and relate on having mastered information and mastered something physiologically. And what comes to my mind is there was a woman that was very, very deep into the studies of Gabriel Cousin. And now I got a lot of disagreements, some fundamental disagreements with some of the things that he does, but I respect a lot of what he did socially, in terms of how he kind of encouraged the people that he taught to go and do like raw food potlucks and that kind of stuff, and that kind of expanded and stuff. So I got some respect there, but we disagree on fasting and raw foods and a number of different issues. But she was so deep into his realm of study that we were able to compare notes in a way that I can't do with somebody that has used that buffet effect, where they, a little bit of Dr. Sebi, a little bit of Eric, a little bit of Morris, a little bit of this person, and that kind of buffet thing without having mastered. It's one thing if you master something and then you start to check out everything, because then you're putting it through a filter that is that's rooted in something, that has a solid ground. So that's something that's just I've observed, and I recommend that people consider, whether, because like I say, it doesn't have to be mucusless diet. If you're not feeling this and you're feeling something else, but whatever you're feeling, dive into that, master it, master that information. You know, be able to receive, you know, I mean, people see me all the time. I mean, I've been over the Mucusless Diet book so many times, and I can recite passages and recall stuff that Eric said, but I have studied Dr. Morris quite a bit. I can draw on that stuff, you know, so I can draw on all these different things, and it's coming. I'm not just reciting something that I heard. It's like I'm able to channel it through the experiences that I've had, and so that's just, I don't know, I'm just not seeing a whole lot of that. But as far as you know, you say Dr. Morris feels that balance is more important than physiological excellence. To me, physiological, but here's the difference, here's the fundamental difference in paradigm and psychology. For me, somebody practicing the transition, eating, decisively eating some cooked acorn squash and a salad, that is on the path to physiological excellence. Or could be for that person. Somebody that, you know, Eric talks about the eating the Satan, you know, the wheat gluten stuff. I didn't really eat that, but I did use soy products. I did use some soy burgers at different times in my transition. Is that, you know, people say, oh, that's not even transition. It's eating that's cooked and that's soy. It's like, how is it eliminating? And how is that within the context of your transition, where you're coming from and where you desire to go? Now, I don't promote any particular physiological level like that say that everybody has to get to this certain plateau or status, you know, because that's something that I encourage each person to decide for themselves. I'm interested in the journey, in the process. And so if your goal is physiological excellence, I would say that type of goal would be for someone that can handle it, because what shouldn't go along with something like that concept, when we use that type of wording, what shouldn't go along with that is anxiety and being hard on yourself and being obsessed with every morsel of food you put in your body. Please, somebody quote me or make a meme about me saying that, because I'm not in favor of that kind of obsessive approach to food and dieting. If you want to be obsessed about something, be obsessed about study and calm objective analysis and physiological inquiry, philosophical inquiry. Expand your mind, and the experience of that and that process should not be an anxious process. It should not be anxiety or stressful. It should feel wonderful when you start to feel your mind open up. And you can think so freely, and the logic stuff just starts opening up, and you're walking down. Your whole world changes. Just you see the world entirely different, and it's calming. It feels good. It's fun. That's what I recommend. But if you're not on that, if you are being hard on yourself and obsessive, and you're trying to all that kind of stuff, then you need to maybe rethink the path, because I don't never say that everybody needs to be doing this. If you're not ready, you're not ready, you know. But I think that with proper transition and proper transitional methodology, we would have less people that are falling off. And I know that, you know, I started really kind of promoting the Mucusless diet effectively, you know, 4 to 5 years ago. And so some of those folks that were the first people to get into the Mucusless diet were hardcore raw foodists and fruitarians, and people that were very, very resistant to ever eating a morsel of cooked food. And I warned them and said, look, like, you know, that's a great goal, and it's cool to do it for a while, but I don't know a whole lot of people that can sustain that indefinitely with totally disregarding the transition and not using any of those methodologies. And one by one, I'm seeing some of these people fall. And those are what you're talking about, folks falling out of the mucusless diet. And in some cases, I mean, some of these folks I even recommended, I recommended they eat stuff that people would think was horrible, you know, like heresy. Like, you recommended that they eat that, when I'm saying, yeah, it'd have been better for them to eat that than what ended up happening. And you can go back to my videos from 2013 and 14 and you hear me talking about the case studies of the people that tried to be raw or fruitarian with no transition, and before they know it, they was eating like carnivore diet and Atkins diet or paleo raw meat kind of whatever. I've been bringing that up for years, but it fell on deaf ears for a lot of folks. But I'm gonna keep saying it because I feel like I'm the only one really talking about it like that. There's saying it's okay, you know, it's okay to transition and, you know, do what you need to do. We say, do we need physiological excellence or just stay healthy enough until we get the hell off the planet? Like I said, that's a personal thing. That's whatever. You know, I'm an artist, and I think about physiology as and physiological excellence is like artistic excellence. And I would not want to live in a world devoid of artistic excellence. You know, I like high art. You know, I like which a lot of people could care less about those, you know, John Coltrane and Miles Davis in the jazz world, and a number, you know, a lot of the artists and the Van Goghs and all that kind of stuff. You know, that's all excellence, and that's all in that artistic realm. And so I don't want to live in a world devoid of art and artistic excellence. And I connect physiological excellence with artistic excellence. So I wouldn't want to live in a world with nobody interested in that at all. Does everybody have to be pursuing that and into that? Man, so I've often said a lot of people just want to feel better. They just want to, you know, they're going through something and they just want a little bit of relief, and doing some enemas and eating some mucus-free meals, they notice that they feel 100 million times better after having done that for a period of time. So I'm in favor of those folks, even if they go back to their old diet. I still commend them, and I encourage them to say, the next time you don't feel good, the Mucusless Diet book is still here. We're still here, you know, and you can come back, and a lot of people do that. You know, they mucus diet for a while, they're feeling real good, but they, you know, fall off the wagon a little bit, or they, you know, don't stay kind of intense with the practice, and you know, it happens. But I just think that if we can focus on transition methodology, really start to have great conversations of people comparing notes of what worked for them. And it's been really hard to foster that kind of environment. I know it has, to where people can feel comfortable, because there's so many raw foodists. Because once upon a time, they were the only people that wanted to hear anything about Arnold Ehret, was raw foodists and fruitarians. The vegans had no interest in anything, and many of them continue to not have any interest in the Mucusless Diet Healing System, because they think they've arrived. They think that they're at that pinnacle of the highest level of anything in the world, doing just being plant-based. So when you start talking about removing some of the mucus-forming foods and getting more methodical, they sometimes are not real happy with you. But so, you know, it's just, I want to see a culture of transition-minded people, transitional philosophy, a deep understanding of what it means to gradually transform your physiology permanently. Not this quick fix, not this, let me take a bunch of herbs and fast and then I'm going to be there, or I'm going to be mucus-free in 2 years. I'm not on none of that. I'm on, today, I'm doing this. This is where I'm at, and then tomorrow I'm gonna just take it a day at a time and keep this moderate, keep a hold on it. Don't lose control. You know, don't lose control if you don't have to. That's what the transition methodology can really help you. Don't lose control if you don't have to, and don't feel guilty about doing whatever you need to do to go along this path. Because on this side of the fence, I'm not into that extremism of it. Do whatever you need to do to keep the thing moving. Let's see, do I count calories or nutrients? I personally do not. And I studied the history of the calorie theory years ago, and I'm not convinced at all. I think it's a very problematic and fundamentally flawed theory from the very beginning of it. The Atwater calorie meter concept, and I read his book, and it was just, made no sense. I mean, and he was an avid meat eater. And so these are theories that are based on and coming out of people who firmly believe that the human body needs dead animal flesh to survive, and needs these pus-forming foods and all this kind of stuff. So a lot of these theoretical frameworks a lot of the origins, you go back and you read the history of nutrition, a lot of the concepts haven't changed much. I mean, there's different, the details and the chemistry explanations and some of that stuff has changed, but the fundamental concepts really are around, and if you read them objectively, the original ones, I don't know, I just was not convinced when I was read through Atwater's analysis and his, that whole thing. So, and at the same time, I mean, there's very few people that I don't know, that's a whole other video where I actually really get into. I talk about the calorie theory a little bit in Spira Speaks and kind of get into that theory, but yeah, I've just been incredibly unimpressed with that entire theoretical framework. What is your stance on auto urine therapy, aka yeah, nope. I'm not the one, I'm not a fan of or advocate in any way of urine drinking as any kind of therapy for healing. I'm sorry, you can call me closed-minded or whatever. That's like the one thing. There's not a whole lot that you are just not allowed to talk about in the Arnold Ehret Facebook group. That's one thing. We're not getting into the urine drinking. Just based on Ehret methodology, the whole point of you getting your kidneys filtering, and Ehret talks about the mucus, when you get the kidney filtration and you start to see all this mucus is coming out in your urine, and he says that anything that you eliminate is waste. Dead, decayed, good for nothing waste. And so to ingest it back in the body, it's not for me. The feces eating is not for me. So the urine and the feces consumption, I'm not a fan of those methodologies. I know the feces, that's the new kid on the block, where they're taking to try to regrow bacteria in people's guts. So they'll take some feces from somebody and give you a pill, feces pill, and drink, and you have the feces pill, and that's supposed to repopulate your gut with little vermin and whatever. So I don't know, but that's, but that's what I'm talking about. It's getting way out there in stuff that's way far away from the Ehret realm. Let's see, just starting a system, need help with fruit, tons of bloating. This system and professor makes so much sense. Yeah, so if you're bloating on fruit, enemas can help with that. If you're a uric acid type, which is there's two, within the Ehret way of thinking, there's two physiology types. There's fat types and uric acid types. And if you have a uric acid type, then as those acids are chemically changed and the process of elimination starts to happen, gas pockets occur, and it's just the chemistry of how your body is eliminating this stuff. So in those cases, when people are having real bad bloating, I'll recommend the broom salads. Sometimes the enemas, just getting some of those acids out of the system and just getting that, flushing that stuff out of there is good. Sometimes going easy on the fruit or going on less aggressive kinds of fruit can be better, or the baked fruit sometimes, or the vegetables, broom salad, baked zucchini or squash or something like that. That's going to create really good bowel movements and hopefully not create too much bloating. And so. But that's the thing, working with the different tools we have on the transition to ultimately get this stuff moving out of your system. And once you find foods that you notice don't really bloat, don't have that effect, then you want to take note of that and stick to that. And I know what I used a lot, if I started to have that kind of gas, I would eat celery. I would just eat celery and like handfuls of lettuce, and that made me feel a lot better. And I would sometimes be able to pass gas and then have a good bowel movement, and that would get some of that bloating on out of there. Let's see what we got. Is turmeric. Mucus-free is garlic, mucus-free. So that goes back to the conversation that I had about earlier about the condiments. I would put those right in that same kind of thing. I mean, turmeric, they're definitely, they're both of those are mucus-free. The question is about the acid. Is it acid forming? Now, turmeric, I found some positive benefits with the turmeric as being something and promote circulation. The same thing with garlic. The thing about some of these things can be great when you start and then become somewhat poisonous to your body later, and that's something that I don't see enough people talk about, because it's either people say that garlic is the devil and the worst thing that you can do, and then other people say that you should eat as much garlic as you can. My thing is that in the beginning of the transition, something like garlic can be helpful, but once you get to a certain point, some of those more pungent kind of items and roots and things can become somewhat poisonous to your personal physiology if you become fairly fairly sensitive. Let's see, any thoughts on drinking a bit of baking soda and water to help with bloating and gas? Did Professor Eric have any wisdom on this? He never recommended baking soda. I experimented with that a little bit, and it's something that in a few cases, that's definitely getting outside of the arid. It's kind of getting outside of that arid realm, because where we would want to try to find something within the fruit and the vegetable juice world, or raw fruits and vegetables, or cooked mucus-free fruits and vegetables to alleviate some of that bloating without using something kind of processed in that way. Something that you couldn't just pick out of the ground. You can't go outside and pick baking soda out the ground. There, at least most people can't in their backyard. Let's see. I'll just take a couple more of these here. Conscious Vegan, thank you for sharing this information. Well, thank you for checking it out. Some commentary on so gross. Fred, nature myth. Fred Hirsch ate cottage cheese his whole life and still seemed technically practice a mucusless diet to some capacity. That's true. Yeah. Fred Hirsch he continued to eat cottage cheese with fruit, and he was 90. I think he was 95. Or his early 90s when he passed away. But yeah, I mean, I don't recommend it, but it's something that's the methodology can be used on various levels. And so in some cases, and there's some people that are practicing the diet in other especially and there's some folks in like the Spanish speaking world, you know, where they rely very heavily on the egg-based mayonnaise and the cottage cheese as kind of a daily staple that they plan on using for a long period of time. People that I've personally worked with, that's not been good, especially if they had some kind of health issue. You know, when Fred Hirsch was being healed, he fasted, and he was, you know, on a different, he wasn't eating cottage cheese, you know, during his fasting period when he was healing. On a long-term basis, he did that. And so and that's another thing with I talk about, you know, I just got this copy. This is a vintage copy of the Mucusless Diet Healing System 1924 second edition. So I got a number of versions of the 4th edition, but between the 2nd edition and the 4th edition of the Mucusless Diet Healing System, Fred Hirsch added that section of vegetarian recipes in the little version. So this version of the Mucusless Diet, the oldest version I have, does not have the vegetarian recipes added in from Fred Hirsch. It also doesn't have the B.W. Child biography, and there's some other things that are different. And so when I have the time, I want to go through this book very closely and analyze it, and I'm gonna write up a blog post or some kind of thing where I talk about the differences that I find from that version and later versions. And I already have an article that you can find about that, about some of the differences between the 4th edition 1924 and the 1994 edition, and then my edition 2014. Well, thank you. This has been an amazing live stream thus far. Conscious Vegan, thank you very much. And some other people, thank you thank you all for tuning in. So yeah, so I think I'm gonna cut it down for those of you that's still hanging in there with me. You know, I really, you know, appreciate you, and you know, I'm just so thankful that more and more people are just being interested in Arnold Ehret's work, and it's just so beneficial. And I just encourage you to study, continue to study the book. And check everything out. You know, you check out, you know, you see the annotated version, but I always I never say that you only have to read my versions. If you can find if you can find the 1924 version, I kind of hoard those. I like to try to find those, so we'll be bidding on those against each other. But yeah, it's fascinating because different versions from different publishers of the Mucusless Diet have some very important differences. When you go to the Benedict Lust version of the Mucusless Diet, the recipe for Ehret's Interclean formula is in there, but the recipe is not in the versions that most of the versions that I've found that Fred Hirsch put out, because he was trying to sell Interclean formula to people. So they were making the bowel formula and selling them. But if you go get a copy from Benedict Lust of Mucusless Diet, you might find a copy that has it in there. So in the annotated version, that's from a Benedict Lust version, and Benedict Lust was publishing. I mean, that's a whole other story. Just the history of Mucusless Diet, Fred Hirsch, Benedict Lust publishing, Ehret literature. That's a fascinating kind of story that's and I wish it's deep research that you have to do to really get to some of that interesting information. But when you start to go through all these different versions, you see that there's some significant differences from version to version. And then when Fred Hirsch started changing menus, you go back to the 1924 version, and they're talking about the Satan food the wheat gluten kind of stuff, then he gets rid of that by the once you get into later versions. And so so I don't know, but I'm just someone that's real that's into arid. So and I find pleasure in analyzing all that kind of stuff, like real research, really going and looking at all these different versions and different the storylines and the history and putting it into historical context. I think that's just great to do, and it helps you deeply understand the content and information. So I really do want to thank you so much for plugging in, and check below if you want to see the links to, I think I have 3 different links. So if you're interested in becoming a part of the Mucus-free Life team, we're going to have a meeting Sunday, I think Sunday at noon Eastern time. It's going to be the next meeting, and but if you can't make that, we'll send the replay. But yeah, it's time to move forward, take everything to the next level. So yeah, if you have questions, there's a link there, and I'll try to answer in my next session. I'll try to answer some more of your great questions, and yeah, we will keep on doing this. Keep on transitioning. Keep on just the little bit that you do. There's an old song, brighten the corner where you are. So you brighten the corner where you're at. Clean that up. You clean your calling out. You clean up your space. And when there's enough of us doing that together, it's not going to be about a war. It's not going to be about trying to go and fight people and all that kind of stuff. The power of the cleanliness is going to do things that's unimaginable to us now. I love those old stories of the kind of the consciousness on patrol kind of stories in the ancient Egypt and places where you didn't have people with guns running around or these death sticks and things to scare people into submission. You had people that were on such a level that when they come into your presence, or you doing something you're not supposed to do, and they come into your presence, their vibration and that gravitational vibration and pull just makes you stop. Just like, okay, that's what our cops, consciousness on patrol, that's the level that they're supposed to be at. But that's not what we have. We have a very sad situation when it comes to that, and all, just yeah. I'll be on here talking for another hour, so let me about all of that stuff. So all right, so until next time, and I'm gonna be back here next week, so to tell your friends and put it out there, I plan on being back here next week for another session. So till then, peace, love, and breath.